Welcome to the Flag Bearer channel. This is Little Known Black History Facts. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. The Case of Love and Deception. Ada Copeland and Clarence King. There are many cases where African American people have passed as white as a means of taking advantage of the white privilege and the rewards that they perceive to go with something so frail as skin color, hair color, texture, and eye color. This story focuses on the case of a white person passing as a black person in order to marry the woman he loves. Ada Copeland was born a slave in 1860. As a young woman, she moved to New York in the mid-1880s and worked as a nursemaid. Around 1887, she became involved with Clarence King, an upper-class white man who presented himself as a light-skinned Black Pullman porter named James Todd. To Ada, Todd was light-skinned, handsome, and had a good job for an African-American man at that time, a Pullman porter. Their story would be unremarkable if not for one detail. Nothing Todd told Ada was true. Clarence King, in reality, was a well-regarded 19th century explorer and geologist from a prominent Newport, Rhode Island family. He was famously connected to two of his closest friends were Henry Adams, the grandson and great-grandson of President John Adams, and John Hay, who had been Abraham Lincoln's private secretary and would become the Secretary of State. King's passing as an African American was extremely unusual. He didn't inhabit his assumed identity all the time, only when he was away from his family. Amongst the white elite, King went by his real name and moved easily through white society. At gentlemen's clubs and elite residential hotels in New York City, he was the white scientist, mountaineer, and author who was called the best and the brightest of his generation by Secretary of State John Hay. Clarence King was the first director of the United States Geological Survey and served from 1879 to 1881. He was a well-known figure in the history of the American West. He had been nominated by President Rutherford B. Hayes. King is noted for his exploration of the Sierra Nevada mountain range. He was a leading surveyor who mapped the West after the Civil War. King, who was blonde and blue-eyed, had been leading a double life as a white man, passing as a black man. He told Ada that he was West Indian, of mixed parentage, and that he would frequently be away because of his job as a Pullman porter. That was how he was able to support a family. How did he manage to pull this off? Until the 1960s, Pullman porters were exclusively black, and they contributed heavily to the development of the black middle class in America. At the age of 46, Clarence King, as John Todd, and Ada Copeland were married in a religious ceremony at her aunt's house. Since there was no civil ceremony, it was considered a common law marriage. Ada, 19 years his junior, lived with their children in Brooklyn and later Queens, attributing her husband's long absences to his job as a Pullman porter. King kept his secret well hidden, even from Ada. King's ability to conceal a black wife and children who lived in the same city was only possible because of New York's unique attributes. New York had segregated neighborhoods and excellent public transportation. King lived as a bachelor in the all-white gentleman club in Manhattan, then hopped on the streetcar when he wanted to visit his black family in another borough. But the most amazing part of King's story is that someone with fair hair and blue eyes was accepted as a black man. He managed it because of the so-called one-drop laws passed in the South during Reconstruction, which declared that someone with one black great-grandparent was considered legally black. At home with Ada, King lived as John Todd, but like Clark Kent in Superman, he was Clarence King while working in the geological field. He gave Ada his name. Okay, it wasn't his real name, but they had 5 children with 4 surviving to adulthood. King, Todd, provided very well for his family. He hired piano teachers and tutors for the children. He found them homes, but it came at a tremendous personal cost. He would move across the Brooklyn Bridge, shed his suit for his Pullman porter's coat, and go home to his wife Ada. And when he moved into Brooklyn and into her house, he would again become the black man known as John Todd. King was deeply in debt for years, and at one point suffered a nervous breakdown. Clarence King had to borrow heavily, mostly from John Hay, to sustain his expensive double lifestyle. Hay and his friend Gardner apparently knew about it, at least toward the end of King's life. King's prominent white friends never knew that he had an African-American wife and 5 mixed-race children. And Ada Copeland, the woman he married, had no idea of her husband's true identity. In 1901, Clarence King died of tuberculosis in Arizona while on an expedition. As he lay dying, he wrote Ada a letter revealing his true identity. He also promised her that his friend John Gardner would take care of her with $80,000 that he had left with him. After King died, Ada Copeland spent a 30-year battle to gain control of the trust fund. In 1933, the court determined that King had died penniless and no money was forthcoming. For over 30 years, Ada had received checks in the mail from a mysterious benefactor, but she never found out what happened to that $80,000. Now, nearing 70 years old, at the trial, the name of the secret benefactor who had sent her the checks came to light. It was John Hay, then his widow, then his son-in-law. For 13 years, from his marriage in 1888 until his death in 1901, Clarence King lived a secret double life. Ada would outlive her husband by 6 decades, long enough to watch Martin Luther King deliver his I Have a Dream speech on television. She died at the age of 103 in 1964. She was one of the last living former enslaved persons in the United States. Anxiety about race continued to play a significant role in the lives of the couple's descendants. Their 2 daughters married as white, each vouching for the other's racial identity at City Hall, which meant they had to leave their mother at home because she was dark complexioned. Their granddaughter Thelma, who Ada had raised, married a white man who hinted that her mixed racial heritage should remain a secret. Anxious about what her own children might look like, Thelma adopted 2 white infants in the 1950s. At the beginning of World War I, their brothers registered for the draft and were assigned to all-black Jim Crow regiments. Not long after that, they were living in Brooklyn with their mother and legally had themselves classified as mulatto. Until next time, if you like little-known history facts as I do, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Press the bell to be notified of future uploads. Thank you for watching.